Rain tasted like iron, not the metallic tang of a wound, but the raw elemental scent of earth being ripped open, a furious baptism. I remember that because seconds before I'd been spitting out the remnants of a cheap, sugary cola, the kind that stains your tongue a lurid, impossible blue. Then the world tilted. Not literally, though the bus lurched violently, sending a wave of panicked murmurs through the cramped space. It was more like my internal axis shifted, a sudden, brutal recalibration. Liam, who'd been staring out the rain-streaked window, his profile a study in sharp angles and quiet intensity, turned to me. Not with concern, not with the usual hesitant smile he reserved for our clandestine after-school meetings, but with a ferocity that made my breath hitch. He grabbed my face, his fingers cold against my skin, and kissed me. Not a gentle, tentative brush of lips, but a deep, insistent press that stole the air from my lungs. The force of it, the sheer, unadulterated need in that kiss, was like being struck by lightning. The bus, the rain, the other passengers, everything dissolved into a blurry, indistinct background. It was just him, his lips, the taste of rain, and something else, something raw and untamed that I couldn't name. In that moment, the blue stain on my tongue seemed to glow, a stark, defiant symbol against the gray backdrop of the storm. It wasn't the first time he'd kissed me, not technically. We shared stolen moments in the shadows of the library, quick pecks behind the gym, but those were whispers compared to this scream. This was a declaration, a violent eruption of something we'd both kept buried. He pulled back, his eyes dark and dilated, and I saw a flicker of something that looked like fear or maybe regret or something that felt like both. But then just as quickly it was gone, replaced by a mask of cold indifference. He looked out the window again, his jaw set, and said in a voice that was barely a whisper, "Wrong person." Wrong person, the phrase echoed in my head, a cruel, impossible twist. The kiss, that desperate, earth-shattering kiss, was a mistake. It was meant for someone else. The blue stain on my tongue suddenly felt like a brand, a mark of something shameful, a wrongness that permeated my very being. The bus rattled on, the rain drumming a relentless rhythm against the glass, and I sat there, numb, the taste of iron and the ghost of his lips burning on mine. The first time he kissed me had just become a twisted, agonizing lie, a phantom limb of a love that was never meant to be. The person he meant to kiss, it wasn't a girl. It was his twin brother, Noah, who was on the bus, 2 seats behind us, a boy identical to Liam in every way but the darkness in his eyes, a darkness that had always been a silent, unspoken threat. The air inside the bus thickened, heavy with unspoken tension. I could feel Noah's eyes on me, a weight that pressed against my skin like a physical force. He knew, or at least he suspected. He always did. He had a way of seeing things, of peeling back the layers of carefully constructed lies, a talent that both fascinated and terrified me. Liam and Noah were mirror images, 2 sides of the same coin, but while Liam's touch was fire, Noah's was ice. He was the quiet observer, the one who saw everything without saying a word. After the incident, Liam and Noah never spoke to each other directly. They would pass notes like they were kids, and it was always about me. The notes were always short and cruel and filled with a cold rage that made my stomach twist. "Stay away from him," one read in Noah's precise, almost clinical handwriting. "You're a disease." Another, from Liam, scrawled in hurried, jagged letters, said, "He'll destroy you." The he was ambiguous, a weapon wielded by both brothers. I found myself trapped in their silent war, a pawn in a game I didn't understand. I started to wonder if the kiss was actually a mistake or a calculated move, a way to test Noah to see how far he could push him. The rain continued, a relentless curtain that obscured the world outside, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of secrets. The bus finally stopped, and Noah got off first, pausing at the door to give me a long, lingering look that made my blood run cold. Liam followed, his face blank, his eyes devoid of any emotion. I watched them walk away, their identical figures receding into the gray drizzle, and I felt a sense of profound loneliness, a desolate emptiness that settled in my bones. I got off last, and I saw a note on the seat that Liam was sitting in. It wasn't his handwriting, it was Noah's. "You're right, he will destroy you, but not in the way you think." I crumpled the note in my hand, my fingers trembling. I walked home, the rain soaking through my clothes, and the words echoed in my head, a chilling prophecy. I started to wonder what Noah meant, what kind of destruction he was talking about. What if the kiss wasn't a mistake at all, but a deliberate act of sabotage, a way to lure me into their twisted game? What if the first time he kissed me was just the beginning of something far more sinister, a prelude to a tragedy I couldn't even imagine? The blue stain on my tongue was long gone, washed away by the rain, but the taste of iron remained, a constant reminder of the chaos they had unleashed. I started to realize that the love I thought I felt was just a reflection of their rivalry, a phantom emotion fueled by their shared obsession. The following days were a blur of whispered accusations and stolen glances. The school hallways, once a familiar landscape, transformed into a battleground, a place where every shadow seemed to conceal a hidden agenda. Liam and Noah, once inseparable, now moved like opposing forces, their silent animosity radiating outwards, infecting everything it touched. I became a ghost, a phantom presence caught between their warring orbits. Liam would try to pull me into hidden alcoves, his touch now desperate, almost pleading, a stark contrast to the brutal intensity of that first kiss. He would whisper apologies, explanations that never quite formed coherent sentences, his eyes filled with a tortured longing that I couldn't decipher. Noah, on the other hand, maintained his icy facade, his gaze a constant, chilling reminder of the note he left on the bus. He started appearing in places I frequented, the library, the park, even the small cafe where I worked after school. He wouldn't speak, just watch, his presence a heavy, suffocating weight. I felt like a specimen under a microscope, every move scrutinized, every emotion dissected. The first time he kissed me had become a twisted experiment, a test subject in their elaborate game. One afternoon, I found a small, intricately folded paper crane on my locker. It was a deep, almost bruised purple, and when I unfolded it, I found a single word written in Noah's precise script. Run. Run. From what? From whom? The ambiguity was deliberate, a psychological weapon designed to amplify my fear. I started to have nightmares, vivid, terrifying visions of dark figures and whispered threats. The rain, which had been a constant backdrop to my confusion, finally stopped, but the oppressive humidity remained, a suffocating blanket that mirrored the suffocating atmosphere at school. I tried to talk to Liam to demand answers, but he would just look at me with those haunted eyes, his lips forming silent apologies that never reached my ears. One evening, I saw him and Noah talking in the empty auditorium, their voices low and urgent. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the tension in the air was palpable, a live wire stretched to its breaking point. I saw Liam push Noah, a sudden violent movement that made my heart leap into my throat. Noah didn't retaliate, just stood there, his face expressionless, his eyes burning with an intensity that made me shiver. I realized then that this wasn't just a rivalry, it was a battle for control, a struggle for dominance that had consumed them both. And I, the unwitting recipient of that first devastating kiss, was caught in the crossfire. The first time he kissed me was not a declaration of love, but a declaration of war, a calculated move in a game where I was nothing more than a pawn. The truth started to dawn on me cold and sharp. Liam's desperation wasn't love, it was fear. Fear of Noah, fear of losing, fear of the dark secrets that bound them together. The love I thought I saw was just the reflection of their shared pain, a distorted image reflected in the broken mirror of their relationship. The crane, the notes, the stolen glances were all messages, not of affection but of warning, a desperate plea to escape their shared fate. The purple paper crane, a symbol of fragile hope, became a constant, haunting presence. I carried it everywhere, its delicate wings a stark reminder of the danger that lurked beneath the surface. The school, once a place of learning, now felt like a prison, its hallways echoing with the unspoken threats of Liam and Noah's silent war. I started to avoid them, to take detours and hide in empty classrooms, but they always found me, their presence a constant, suffocating weight. Liam's attempts to reach me grew more desperate, his apologies more frantic, but I couldn't bring myself to trust him. The first time he kissed me had poisoned everything, turning every subsequent interaction into a minefield of doubt and suspicion. Noah, in contrast, remained aloof, his silence more terrifying than any threat. He was a predator circling his prey, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. One afternoon, I found a small, antique key tucked into my locker. It was cold and heavy, with intricate carvings that seemed to writhe in the dim light. There was no note, no explanation, just the key, a silent, ominous offering. I felt a chill run down my spine, a sense of dread that settled in my stomach like a stone. I knew instinctively that it was connected to them, to their twisted game, to the first time he kissed me and the chaos that followed. I decided to follow the key. I began to look for doors and locks that the key could potentially open. The search took me to the oldest part of the school, a forgotten wing that had been closed off for years. The air was thick with dust and the smell of decay, and the silence was broken only by the creaking of floorboards beneath my feet. I found a hidden door tucked away behind a row of dusty bookshelves. The key fit perfectly. The door swung open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase that descended into the depths of the school. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest, but the pull of the unknown was too strong to resist. I descended into the darkness, the key clutched tightly in my hand. The staircase led to a small, underground room, a hidden chamber that felt ancient and forgotten. In the center of the room, there was a single wooden chest, its lid slightly ajar. I approached it cautiously, my senses heightened, my body tense. As I opened the chest, I found stacks of old letters and photos. Photos of Liam and Noah, but not as I knew them now. Photos of them as children laughing, holding hands, their faces filled with an innocent joy that seemed impossible now. Among the photos was a letter written in a child's scrawl addressed to our secret. The letter spoke of a shared dream, a promise they made to each other, a bond that was supposed to last forever. But the letter also hinted at a dark secret, a hidden truth that had shattered their bond, turning their love into a weapon. The first time he kissed me was not a random act, but a reenactment of a childhood moment, a twisted echo of a love that had been corrupted by something dark and unforgivable. I realized that the love I saw was a reflection of something shattered, something twisted, a desperate attempt to reclaim a lost innocence. The key, the room, the chest, it was all a part of their past, a past that was now bleeding into my present. The letters, brittle and yellowed with age, revealed a story far more complex and disturbing than I could have ever imagined. Liam and Noah's bond, once a source of unwavering devotion, had been fractured by a shared trauma, a dark secret that had poisoned their relationship. The first time he kissed me was not a declaration of love, but a desperate, misguided attempt to recreate a moment from their childhood, a moment of pure, unadulterated affection that had been irrevocably tainted. They had been inseparable, two halves of a whole, until a tragic accident, a childhood game gone wrong, had resulted in the death of a young girl, a girl they both loved. The guilt, the fear, the unspoken accusation had driven a wedge between them, turning their love into a weapon, a tool for inflicting pain. The key, the hidden room, the chest were all remnants of their shared past, a past they were desperately trying to reclaim or destroy. The first time he kissed me was a desperate plea, a fractured attempt to mend their broken bond, to recapture a love that had been lost. I found a final letter tucked beneath the photos, written by Noah. It was a confession, a raw, unfiltered expression of his pain, his guilt, his love for Liam. He admitted to manipulating Liam, to using me as a pawn in their twisted game, to orchestrating the kiss as a way to force Liam to confront their shared past. He wrote that he loved Liam, but that he also hated him for reminding him of their shared guilt, for embodying the innocence they had both lost. He explained that Liam's desperate affection was not love, but a desperate attempt to erase the past, to rewrite their shared history. He wrote that he had always loved Liam and that he wanted to be loved in return, but that their love had been corrupted, twisted into something dark and destructive. I realized then that the first time he kissed me was not about me at all. It was about them, about their fractured relationship, their shared trauma, their desperate attempt to reclaim a lost innocence. It was a desperate act of love twisted into something unrecognizable. I left the room, the key still clutched in my hand, the weight of their secrets pressing down on me. I found Liam waiting for me, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. He confessed, his voice trembling, his words a raw, unfiltered expression of his pain. He said he loved Noah, but that he was also terrified of him, of the darkness that lurked beneath his icy facade. He said that the kiss was a mistake, a desperate attempt to recreate a moment from their childhood, a moment of pure, unadulterated affection that had been irrevocably tainted. He said he was sorry for using me, for dragging me into their twisted game. I looked at him and I saw not a lover, but a broken boy, a victim of his own past. I realized that the first time he kissed me was not the beginning of a love story, but the end of one, a tragic echo of a love that had been destroyed by guilt and fear. The love I thought I saw was just a reflection of their shared pain, a distorted image reflected in the broken mirror of their relationship. The first time he kissed me, I thought I was in love, but I was wrong. I was just a witness to their shattered love, a silent observer in their tragic story.